cats are very independent, aren't they? They live their own lives. Dogs are dependent and faithful and friends. They are friends, aren't they? Man's best friend and woman's best friend and anybody else's best friend. So I would have to say, in all fairness, both of them.
No.
We like that one.
So we're throwing it to the audience. Cat people, put your hands up. Nice. Dog people? Oh dear.
Lots of
Oh,
I'm
we're
a cat
in the minority,
person, yeah.
Mark. We are in the minority. Marmite.
Marmite.
Yeah, love it or hate it.
Marmite, yeah, I do like Marmite. I don't have it too often, but it's good. It's good, not too much, obviously, like everything, but it's quite salty, and that isn't good for you, but it is yeast, and yeast can be good for you. Vitamin B, isn't it, and all that.
I think it is, yeah.
So I'd have to say, yes, Marmite.
We've been asking that question for 4 years, and that's the best answer I think I've ever had in 4 years. Just going into the sort of the health benefits of it and what have you. So
well, that's
respect.
why that's what food is. I regard food as it's nice, good food and treats, but it is medicine. It is you are what you eat. They said that for years. And Marmite on toast with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee is a lovely, lovely thing.
Are there any Marmite deniers out there? Oh,
Hiding at
there's
the
some
back.
wrong people
Hiding
at the
at
back.
the back.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll stay on the food theme. Pizza or pasta?
Pasta, without doubt. Pasta is lovely. I used to eat a lot of it, daily, nightly. I've cut down because too much, again, is not good. But I do like a bit of pasta, yes. And what do I like? I like the arrabbiata, the penne arrabbiata. I like pasta with olive oil. Is very good. But again, not too much. As you get older, you have to weigh things up, don't you? In every area of life, not too much, not too much. But we've got to have something, and we've got to enjoy things and not judge them or dismiss them or, I like a drop of pasta.
As a pizza man, I was gutted there, but then I loved that sort of sermon on cutting down, and now I feel inspired to sort of lose a little bit of weight, so bless you.
So, a sunny day or a starry night?
Well, Starry Night, that made me think of Don McLean. You remember that? Starry Vincent, wasn't it? Starry, Starry Night. That song. Anyone remember that? Yeah? Yes. I have to say sunshine. We need sunshine. We need back again to health, vitamin D, but it also makes you feel better. You know what it's like on a sunny day, even if it's blowy, and it can be. I've discovered in Scarborough, it can be that wind can be quite chilly, but when the sun's out, it does make people feel better, and I do like. But then again, you see, like cats and dogs, the night is good. It's the yin and the yang. So both, I'd have to say.
Okay, I'll preempt what's coming later. How about this one? Daleks or Cybermen?
Now, is this liking them or I don't know?
Oh, it's however you want to interpret it.
Because
really.
they can't be particularly liked, can they? But Daleks were the first ones, of course. I think they were before the Cybermen, weren't they? With William Hartnell.
They were, yeah.
1963 was the start, wasn't it? Whether they were bang in the beginning. Were they the first villains, the Daleks?
I think they were like the third or fourth episode in, I think.
Yeah, they were. So Daleks, I mean, they're loved and hated, aren't they, in equal measure?
We've got a few wandering around as well, so we've got to be careful what we say, haven't we?
They're very naughty, the Daleks here. Very naughty.
Any Cybermen here today? Any?
Yeah, we had a question from one in the last panel, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is he still here, our Cyberman? No, he's gone.
No, we've got a Cyberman in a homemade costume in a wheelchair. It looks incredible.
Yeah, I probably don't know enough about the Cybermen, but the Daleks are, they've been there since the beginning, haven't they? So, yeah.
So whilst we're on Doctor Who, because you've done classic Who and modern Who, how was your experience different between the two? And
Well,
tell us about your time on Doctor Who, basically.
well, the first was The Trial of a Time Lord, 1986, Lord Kiv, and the second was David Tennant and General Staal, which was there were almost, well, just over 20 years in between, wasn't it? What I did notice was the pace of everything, and coincidentally, this is the life of a so-called actor. There are times you don't work, you know, not through choice, but through the situation where you're not being offered things. And when I was asked to do General Staal, when I went and read for it, I hadn't worked. I hadn't had I might have done the odd bit here and there, but I certainly hadn't worked for about 2 years. And the day that I had the audition for General Staal, there was a tube strike. So I walked most of the way. I needed the job. It's a classic thing, but I needed it. And I went along, and I did get there in time and read Scottish director, McKinnon, Donald McKinnon, I can't remember. Anyway, I do remember, but I can't remember the name. McKinnon, I think, was his surname. And then they asked me to do it. Then I had to go to Cardiff. And the thing with television and filming is you don't get much rehearsal. I like to rehearse. I started in theatre, and just being on the stage and seeing you there, is that I can feel it already. It's the same relationship. And I feel far more comfortable in plays and on stage than I do in front of a camera for either television or filming. However, that very little rehearsal, and in all that heavy gear for the General, and the pace of it, so it was quite not a shock, but I really had to pull myself together and say, come on, you've got to get this right, you've got to do it. So there was a difference in the whole feel and pace of things between the 80s and 2007, I think is when we did it. It was shown in 2008. And then the next one was 2010, I think it was, with Matt Smith. They're different Sontaran, Pandorica, wasn't it, that one?
Did you go back and look at the way that the Sontarans were represented in 1985 and what have you? Or did you bring your own sort of like slants to the role? How much did you take from what had been done with the Sontarans before? Because
right. What I did, because when in those 70s, that was a time when I was working in repertory theatre throughout the country, which unfortunately has really, really diminished. In every town, every city, there were certainly at least one, often two, sometimes three different theatres, and actors were working all over the place. You do a season, you play all sorts of characters, all sorts of plays. You'd be working on one play, performing at night, rehearsing the next play, and possibly reading the one that was going to come after that. So it was very good for actors. So I didn't see a lot of the television because I'd be working at night, and there weren't video recorders or anything like that. So I couldn't base it on anything I'd seen. When I was asked to do it, I did go and get DVDs of those, and I saw some of those. But all I did really, or tried to do, was take it, as always, from the script, what the character said, what people said about him, and the Sontarans, and had a go. And as I said, there wasn't the opportunity, as in theatre, for rehearsal, so you just had to get on with it, make certain decisions, and bang into those and keep it going throughout. Yeah.
With the Sontarans, though, how long were you in makeup to get into your full costume for it?
For the head and the face, the head was like a huge foam balaclava, really, in a way. So covering, and you going down that side, and there was that hole there, and then the face was melded in, I don't know what you call it. What's the word? Blended in to the rest of it. All that took 3.5 hours getting that on. The actual the costume, armour, whatever we can call it, was very, very heavy and quite restricting as well. So it was a tough job, that one. And of course Staal and the other Sontarans, more than Staal possibly, because they were involved in a lot of fighting. Staal had his stick, but he didn't have the gun, and those guns were heavy as well. It was quite restricting, so you had to act your way through it in a way. With Lord Kiv, as far as I remember, he was on an operating table most of the time, so you were fairly static. And I'd sit, as I'm sitting now, and the table was in front of me, and the tail of the Kiv's tail was laid on that table. So I was sitting like this. And so that was easier in that sense, to cope with. But again, with Kiv's head and all that, and the body, that was another 3.5 hours or so. The techniques of the makeup had changed by then in 20 years or more, of course. But it was a long time in makeup, yeah.
I know Claire's dying to ask you about the young ones in a moment, but just as a sort of linking question to the young ones, how would Mike have handled a Sontaran invasion, do you think?
I don't know. How would he have done that? I think he'd just invite them in and let them get on with it, and he'd go off and do something else.
Just give Vivian the nod, wouldn't he? Just give Vivian the nod.
Oh yes, Vivian would
Yeah.
cope with it. Oh well, he'd have no problem. They'd be very friendly, and Neil would probably think they've landed for him. He'd be paranoid about them taking him away. I don't know how Rick would respond. He'd probably imagine it was a hallucination or something, or somebody was playing a trick on him, or he thought it was Vivian and Mike dressed up or something like that. Yeah.
So we will come on to the young ones, because certainly it was a very big show when I was younger. Admittedly, it was the reruns for me. So how did you get involved into that? Because there were a lot of comedians in there. What was it like going to work with people like Aid and Rick?
Well, that was 1982, I think we did the first series, 6 episodes in 82, second series, 6 episodes in 84. Get back to the theatre, I was doing a play in London called Can't Pay, Won't Pay, which was an Italian farce with Alfred Molina, and Sylvester McCoy, of course, was in that as well, before his doctor. And I was doing that. Maggie Steed was in it. Andy de la Tour was Maggie Steed's partner. He was part of all that Comedy Store, so-called alternative comedy. Originally, the Young Ones was done as a pilot. The first episode was the pilot episode, which I'm sure you know, but just for those who don't, it's when they make an episode of something they have an idea might run, but there's no guarantee it's going to run, and then they show it or see the response to it, or they show it to the people in charge and they say, yes, let's go ahead with another 5. Anyway, I was doing this play. Peter Richardson, who was part of the comic strip, The Comedy Store, which was happening at the same time. They were doing the Comic Strip Presents, which was the beginning of Channel 4 television, the channel. He was going to be playing this character, Mike. But I think there were artistic differences along that. Again, I didn't know any of this until after, probably years after the thing was done. And then they were seeing people for this character, and Andy de la Tour suggested me, because he'd seen Can't Pay, Won't Pay, and thought I might be. I think the Mike character was supposed to be the straight sort of person there that they could all bounce off, and I went along and I read, And then they asked if I'd do it. And then again, it's like it all happened very quickly. They were all part of this whole movement, of which I wasn't. I was just an actor, theatre actor, with the odd bits of television here and there. And I had to make decisions. They said it's like an English Fonz. So I thought, well, I can't be a Fonz. The Fonz is the Fonz, which was great, the Happy Days, the leather jacket, the T-shirt, the jeans. I thought, I can't, that would just be, I'd had to try and find something. And we came, I think in the first episode, which was the pilot, I was in like sporty sort of stuff. I think maybe he's a sport, and that didn't seem to work. So really in that first series, it was finding out as I went along. I had the hair back because that was how it was for the character in the theatre job, the Italian auto worker. They were working in a Fiat factory, the two husbands. And then we got the suits and the different ties and all that, and that's how that came about. But it grew as I went along. Now, if I did it again, I wouldn't do it like that. I never felt particularly comfortable. Everyone else was absolutely fantastic. We got on well. We did, but I wasn't. But it comes back again to the camera stuff, the television, the film things. So this is why I like theatre and rehearsing, because it gives you a chance to really, work on something. Some people are great with off-the-cuff things. That's why I'm not a comedian. And that's how it happened.
Off the back of that, was there a particular moment when you sort of realised how strange that show was? Or did it always feel pretty normal from doing it from the inside?
No, when I read it, when I got the script, I knew this was new. I knew it was different. You could read it and see from that. So I knew it was something special. Nobody knew that it would take off and we'd still be talking about it. And how much people, people do love it. I know people really do, and they can quote endlessly from every episode and have favourite episodes. Usually it's the University Challenge one people like. But then there were, each of the 12 were great in their own way. And from that, Rick and Aid asked me to do Dave Hedgehog in Bottom with Big Steve O'Donnell playing Spud Gun. And that was great. I was far more relaxed in that and finding that character. And I'd obviously got to know them and done other things with them. So, yeah, I can't fully remember what you just said.
Somebody, you've just said that you're not a comedian, but you've been in a lot of comedy sitcoms, with One Foot in the Grave, Ab Fab, New Statesman, Fools and Horses, big classic, very British, very funny shows.
Yeah, yes. Well, Fools and Horses, that was Roy Marsden, who played Danny Driscoll, and I was Tony, the brother. I'd worked with Roy in theatre in Edinburgh in 1974, and John Challis had worked with Roy again in theatre and had asked Roy to play this character that was coming up. For only one episode, those two characters appeared, and then Roy, for some reason, thought of me, and I went along and met the director, Tony Dow, read for him, and the next thing I know, I'm playing Tony Driscoll. We did far more in Green Grass, the spin-off. I say far more. We did a couple of episodes maybe in each series. We came back, always threatening Boise and Marlene.
It's interesting you talk about a lot of those classic British sitcoms, and with the young ones almost redefining what a sitcom could be. Is there still that room for that sort of creative chaos in TV today, do you think, if it was redone?
I hope so. And I've got a confession to make. About 2001, 2002, I think, was the beginning of all the reality stuff. You remember it all started with, I can't remember what the thing was called now.
Was it Big Brother?
Was it Big Brother, right. And there were other things. Before then, there'd been certain things. Wasn't there one about a cruise thing and one about an airport and things like that? But that started, and I was dealing with all sorts of, as we all do in life, we've all got problems and situations that we have to cope with and deal with, and they take up a lot of time and trying to get work. And I'd see these things, I thought, I don't need to be looking at this. I stopped watching television then, so I don't know. I've seen bits here and there, obviously, inevitably. I get the Radio Times for the radio, but there's all information about the television, so I'm aware, but I'm not up to scratch on all the things. I know Ricky Gervais is very good, controversial, but he's very clever. So many of them, the Fast Show, they came along, and the League of Gentlemen came along as well. All these people are hugely talented and different and moving things on, you know. Harry Enfield and Paul Whitehouse, fantastic character actors, the stuff they do. But I'm not up to speed. The same with the films, with all the, especially the sci-fi films. I feel, you know, I see the character, I have to say, what's that character? What's the people who come dressed as the characters? I don't know who they are. And there's all this anime stuff as well now, isn't there? Yeah. So I think every age, every generation have their programs, the thing that, like songs, like, you know, I remember in the 50s, Perry Como and people like that, Magic Moments and all sorts of things. And then in the 60s, of course, the Beatles. I was 13 in 1963, and it was extraordinary. And throughout the 60s, we would wait, if any of you are a bit older, I remember waiting for the next, I think it was 6 and 8 for a single, 6 shillings and 8 pence. And you'd be waiting to see what they were going to do next. And for me, every single was different than the previous one and just as good. And often John and Paul would have the different sides, be Strawberry Fields on one side, Penny Lane on the other. Why am I saying all this? I'm saying that we all have different times and different things that mean a lot to us. So yes, they must be good things, and there will be others as time goes on.
Yeah, I draw a parallel with appointment TV there as well. How these days, in the days of streaming, that you can watch whatever you want when you want, and back in those days, you had to be in front of your TV at the appointed hour, or you missed it.
Yeah, and there were very few channels. Initially, there was BBC, and then along came ITV, and that time there'd be things like Robin Hood, Richard Green's Robin Hood, if any of you remember that, and Ivanhoe with Roger Moore, and so many, and then the American things that came over. Oh, remember all those westerns in the 50s and the 60s? Rawhide, Wagon Train, Laramie, and they all had fantastic theme tunes. And Frankie Lane used to sing most of them. All these things are there, and now you can, at a press of a button or a flick or whatever I can text, I can make a phone call. That's all I can do. But everything is available to everyone, it seems now. From years and years go by. One of my favourites is Will Hay. If any of you remember Will Hay, from the 30s and the 40s, fantastic films and characters. I could go on. I do go on.
Right, I think Claire's down. Oh, there she is.
I'm at the back this time.
So it's time to throw it over to you guys for some questions. So Claire's got the mic. Stick your hand up if you've got anything, and don't be shy.
Come on, you've got some questions.
Oh, nobody's got a question.
Ask me anything you like.
Oh, there you go.
There we go. Right
there
by
you
me as well.
go.
There we go.
I've just read that you've been in a Mr. Bean episode, and I didn't realise it was you at first. What was it like being with Mr. Bean in that episode?
Right. Again, that was one. It was one episode, and it was it was a night school, wasn't it? I think, and it was judo or karate. I can't remember. And he got my trousers, and he's very tall, Rowan Atkinson, and I ended up in a toilet cubicle. And then things were thrown back. What was it like? Well, it was only a couple of days' work, really. And it was about the time of the comic relief time when we did all that stuff with the Living Doll thing. So a lot was going on at that time, but it was great to be asked. And people still ask about it, as you're doing now. So
Did you get to work with Cliff when you did the single?
Oh yeah, well we did. We recorded that. Again, that single was the first song for Comic Relief. We did it in 2 days. One day in the studio where we sang, and Cliff Richard came along, as did Hank Marvin, and Hank played his solo on that. And then we had another day where we recorded the video for the thing in a children's playground park. So it was only 2 days, and making it up as you go along, really. And so Cliff was there for the studio. Yes, we did that. We did all that. And then he came and did the Comic Relief theatre show that we did. And Bob Geldof was there as well. And lots of people were there, in fact.
Nice.